But I have to say, I think the look I gave him was something like this. Like, and I'm not going to describe that. You want to see it. Watch the video. It's not my best look, I have to say, but it really did convey, who the hell do you think you are? And what on earth makes you think you have the right to speak to me like that? Hello, 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 and welcome to Well Shit. It really is that simple. I'm Claire.
And I'm Serena. On this podcast, we help you to understand about your 12 universal needs, why they are currently not being well met,
how to meet them in ways that work for you, and how to consistently do so in quick, easy, and simple ways that fit seamlessly into your life.
We'll also help you to understand how doing so will have a positive ripple effect in literally every area of your life.
If you like what you hear, sign up for more support with meeting your needs with your weekly Universal Needs notes at theuniversalneeds.com.
And enjoy the show.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hey, everyone.
So the subject matter we're talking about today is very interesting because I think that different people have got different perspectives on this. And I don't think anyone's really hit the nail on the head as far as this is concerned, because there's a lot of people that, due to societal expectations, believe that people owe each other certain things, or that they owe other people, or other people owe them certain things. There's also a number of people, I have seen lots of people sharing, like, you don't owe anybody else anything. And I don't think that's entirely correct either. The truth of the matter is, there is only one thing that you actually owe other people. And I'm going to give you a moment to think about what that might be. Don't normally do this, but hey, apparently we're doing things differently today. So think about it for a second.
My tea.
I'm going to sip my tea. The tea is piping hot with this, and there is some fun tea later on. But no, like, have a think about it for a second. What is the one thing that you think that you owe other people? I'm like, do, 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 do.
I was...
Same. Yeah, no, except we're not after a question here. Oh no, it's not a question. Is it that? Is that the one where they have to say what the question is?
Yeah. What is?
Yes, it is. Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Anyway, we're not playing Jeopardy today either, but I just wanted you to have a stop and think about it, because I think a lot of people have got a lot of schools of thought on this, and a lot of those schools of thought are conflicting. So I thought it might be helpful for you to, before we actually get into it, have a think about, what do you believe based on your experience, based on what you've heard us talk about on the podcast for all this time. Because obviously we talk about self-first ways of meeting needs. And actually, if you know the definition of self-first, there's a clue in the definition. So the only thing that you want...
I feel like it's like a Sesame, like, it reminds me of Sesame Street when, like, the characters would talk to the screen, and, like, then as a kid you're supposed to shout that, it's a blue ball, it's the blue ball.
Are you saying I'm a Muppet?
No, I'm not saying you're, I mean, you can easily be like, you know, like, I don't know, like any cartoon, like a children's shows, like the call and response, and it's like, that's just, I was like, I could see people on the other end.
I know. Okay, so if you look at the definition of self-first is meeting your needs in ways that support you, and the minimum ways that do not compromise other people's needs, and sometimes in ways that may benefit them. The minimum is the clue here. The only thing that you actually owe to other people is not to compromise their needs, not to act and behave in certain ways that compromise their needs. And that's acting and behaving to compromise their needs can take two different forms. One is neglect, and the other is actually negatively impacting their needs. So one is you can, and obviously a lot of the time neglect is very present in situations where you have people who are dependent on you for meeting needs. When it comes to relationships, there's nuance with that. So I'm going to kind of step sideways from that one today. It's not as simple as you don't know each other, that you can't neglect each other because they're not dependents. It's a little bit more nuanced than that. So we're going to save that for another episode. But specifically, when we're talking adult to adult, a lot of the time, when we're talking about compromising needs, we're talking about doing something that will negatively impact somebody else's needs. This happens all the time. This is like part of day-to-day life. People negatively impact each other's needs all the time. But the only thing that we actually can expect or feel entitled to from other people is for them to not negatively impact our needs. That is reasonable. Anything outside of that, again, intimate relationships to one side for a second, because there's nuance when it comes to this, we are not entitled to anybody else meeting our needs for us. And a lot of the time, the different ideas about what is owed to people really kind of cloud this a lot and make it very difficult for people to know what is appropriate and what is inappropriate. Because, as I said, there's a lot of social expectations that are based in the assumption that somebody else is going to meet your needs for you, or that somebody else should meet your needs for you, or you're entitled to somebody else meeting your needs for you. And that is a fallacy. And there were a couple of situations that happened last week. I talked in the previous episode about having this time away. I think I talked about in the previous episode. Was that what we talked about? Yes, that was what we talked about in the previous episode. The previous episode went in a lot of different directions. I'm just checking that we did actually mention that at some point.
It took us a while to get to that episode as well.
Yeah. So there have been lots of things discussed today already. But when I was away last week, there were a couple of moments where I really had, there were three big ones that really jump out at me, where people felt entitled to something from me that they had no right to expect. So the first one was very interesting. I had been in a situation where I had been in this kind of deeply meditative state for a period of time. I was in a place where I was on my own. I wasn't affecting anybody else. Nobody else was around. And I was in this very, I don't know what the word is, woo bubble is the best way of describing it. Like,
if you know, you know.
I was in my own little world. I was in my own little bubble. I feel like Glinda the witch in my little bubble, where she's like she's trying to talk to the outside world, and it's like muffled and what have you. That's kind of how it felt. I'm in my little bubble, and I was walking back from the place that I'd had this experience, and on the way I stopped at one of the springs to do something that felt really supportive to my needs. And as I was walking down the street, there was a trash truck that was that collecting the trash. Funnily enough, that's what trash trucks do. That's why it was there.
I'm glad you thought about it, though, just to ensure that that's in fact what the trash truck was doing there.
This could be another interesting episode, everybody. Just warning you now. We're only 6 minutes in, and I can already see it going places. So as I was walking down, one of the people from the trash truck said good morning to me. And the truth of the matter is that in some ways it popped my bubble a little bit. I wasn't expecting it. I wasn't looking for it. And just out of kind of reflex, I said good morning back. Not because I really wanted to. It was just it was like a call and response thing. And as I did it, it felt really off. And I'm like, no, I'm like, this bubble I'm in, it's a long time since I've been in a bubble like this. And actually, I really want to be in that for a while. And I don't want anybody else's energy in it right now with me. I didn't say anything. After I said good morning, what I did was I went back to the spring and I repeated what I'd done again. Cause I'm like, okay, let me get back into my bubble again. And I walked down the street. And the other guy who was also working on the trash truck, as I walked past, said morning to me. And I'm like, no, I just want to stay in my bubble right now. I'm like, this is really important to me. It's really supportive of me. And actually, I don't want to interact with anybody else right now. And I don't need to interact with anybody else right now. So I kept walking. I didn't respond. And as I carried on walking, this guy said, morning, like this. And I'm like, and at that point, now I don't think I did.
Every time you do that, I can just see like Dick Van Dyke saying, like, I feel like Mary Poppins.
I mean, he didn't look entirely un-Dick Van Dyke. Like,
yes,
yes, esque. That's what I was saying. Yes. Now the interesting thing is, this felt different between the two of them. Like, one of the guys, it just felt like he was doing what he wanted to do, was saying good morning. And I don't think he would have actually had an issue if I hadn't responded. It took me by surprise because I was in my little bubble. I wasn't really paying attention to the fact there's anyone there. I was like, oh, okay, morning.
And his could have been like a
This
conditioned response. You see somebody walk by. Yeah.
exactly,
Good morning. Like,
exactly,
say it
exactly.
because somebody's there.
Absolutely. But the interesting thing about the second guy was his response when he didn't get a reply tells me that he was not offering me a greeting. He was not sharing something. He was creating what he saw as an obligation. He felt entitled to me responding to him. And he wasn't like doing something just nice for somebody else. He was doing something to get something back in response. And when he didn't get that thing back in response, he obviously had an issue with it and was going to make a point of the fact that he had an issue with it. And I remember it was so interesting because like part of me, and my second example of this, I did actually look at the person as if to say, what on God's green earth do you think you're doing? Because like, no. But I didn't. I just kept walking straight. I was like, I'm in my bubble. I'm preserving my bubble. I can't even hear you in my bubble. I'm going to bubble off. I'm going to float down the road in my little bubble. But it was how he reacted that really irked me because, as I said, if you are saying good morning to somebody, the social expectation is that the person has to reply. Otherwise, the other person is being rude. You don't know where that person is at. You don't know what is going on in that person's life. They could be grieving for something. They could not be able to hear you, as in they could have a hearing impairment. They could be non-speaking. They could be at a point of overwhelm where they literally cannot cope with anything else in their life, even the tiniest little thing. They could be in a little woo bubble and wanting to do what is right for them. Now, me not responding didn't negatively impact this person. If I had responded in the way that part of me wanted to respond at that time, I may well have negatively impacted his needs. But what he was expecting, he felt entitled to me meeting his needs by responding. And that's the issue in this situation, is my lack of response. There's this, as I said, societal expectation that if you don't respond, you're being rude. And there's a perception that being rude would be something that would negatively impact somebody's needs. The situation here, though, is like, I wasn't in a situation where I had put myself into a circumstance to be in a conversation with somebody. I hadn't arranged to meet somebody and then ignored them the entire time I was there. This was a situation where I just happened to be out existing in the world. And my existing in the world made this person believe they were entitled to a response from me. And I think that's the thing, is that there's a lot of social expectations around and so societal, I was going to say rules. I think guidelines is probably better word, because I don't think they're rules at all. I think that there are a bunch of ideas that somebody decided at some point was politeness. And the truth of the matter is, one of the things that we don't owe anybody else is politeness. As in, if somebody, and again, nuance. If I'd arranged to meet up with Serena, I'd asked her to come and meet me somewhere, and I was impolite to her as part of our interaction, in that situation, that could easily be, depending on how it's done, depending on the circumstances around it, that could potentially be negatively impacting her needs, because I have asked her to be a part of this conversation, and then I'm doing something that, there's a difference between politeness and doing something that is going to maybe devalue somebody or disrespect somebody, that could compromise somebody's needs.
If like somebody sneezes in the grocery store and you don't say bless you, that's like, that is something that society has deemed that is what's polite to say. It does not impact your needs for somebody to not say bless you. Like, we're not in the plague times anymore. It's kind of irrelevant to begin with, if you ask me. Like, however,
but also if you don't subscribe to a faith, then also irrelevant. Like if you don't understand the origins of that dynamic, the sneeze and bless you it came about during the plague, because a sneeze was often an indicator that you had the plague, and a lot of the time plague would lead to death, and therefore bless you was their way of saying, like, may God bless you and hopefully you don't die, or if you do, that he looks after you when that happens. very Christian view of the world. And as I said, it's if you didn't have a faith, then if somebody says bless you to somebody who's an atheist, a lot of the time they'll be like, I don't want to be blessed, thank you. Like, I'm not
No, thank
interested.
you.
Like, can return to sender. Not like not a gift I have any interest in right now. So this is the reason, like, politeness is, like, I feel like it's something else you want to jump.
Yes,
You
well,
want to,
there's
yes.
like it's something that I just haven't really said for a while now for various reasons. And there are times where like somebody will sneeze and then like I'll catch out of my peripheral. They're like, okay.
Okay.
And I probably would have been one of those people at one point too. Like,
Mhm.
what the fuck is her problem? She didn't say bless you. Like what, this bitch thinks she's too good for me? Like I would, I mean, I would have gone some places and I probably would have been like ignorantly vocal about it too, like to myself, but that's a whole nother thing. But like it's, I mean, it's interesting because of what we teach. I'm like, I don't owe you things. I get that society says this is the polite
social
thing
norms
to do.
are, yeah.
I know you want me to subscribe to this, but I'm not going to be pressured into it because I am not impacting your needs in any way. And by not having a moment and being like, I don't owe you a bless you, but just going on about my day, it's like, all right, think whatever you want. Think I'm rude.
Yeah.
Think I'm
Mm-hmm.
okay. Like,
well, and what's really interesting is actually when I was away, there were a few times, and this is something that I have no interest or care for somebody to bless me if I sneeze. I'm not interested. I don't need it. And interestingly enough, there were a few times that I sneezed while I was away. And it's interesting how you still expect it, even if you're not really that interested in it. And it was interesting because I noticed there were multiple times when I was away that it didn't happen. And my immediate reaction was like, oh, and then I'm like, oh, I like that people are choosing not to do this. Like, we're breaking these social norms that actually have no relevance in our current social and current time. Like, I was trying to, I'm like evolutionary, chronologically, like, yeah. Go on.
It's interesting. This is just kind of sparked something it's actually kind of on topic. So yay me. The only time I'm really compelled to say it is when my cat sneezes. Now, my cat does not have any concept of Christianity or the plague or anything.
Sure?
Like, but I don't know. Doodles is smart, but I'm not sure that he has that historical knowledge. However, it's the only time I'm ever like compelled to like be like to really say it. It's because I want his attention.
Oh, interesting. Well, an
like,
interesting thing is that you could, in that circumstance, say something else, because the words bless you don't mean anything in that context. You could be like, oh, buddy. Like,
yeah.
You know, you could still do something that kind of breaks this pattern of the social constructs we have around what the norms should be and what we should be doing in certain situations.
But it's like, I'm wondering if there's like, and I'm not sure if it's like the intention that people are looking for, like not attention, but like acknowledgement. Like I'm secondary in my household when it comes to Mr. Razzle Dazzle. Anybody who has cats, if you are the primary, lucky you. If you are the secondary, you know how I feel. So any little interaction, I'm like, come on, look, I'm saying bless you. I'm so polite to you. Like that's not what it is, but it's almost like a bid for the attention. I feel like a lot of times, like people are doing it because they feel socially obligated, but they want to be seen as a polite person who offers these condolences.
They're trying to meet they're trying to meet their value need. They're trying to be perceived as the good person in this situation. So yeah, lots of stuff around this. And as I said, when it comes to politeness, there's a lot of nuance around this. Like, if somebody is sorry, my brain's doing brainy things today. It's like, as I'm thinking, like 3 other thoughts are kind of coming in. So for example, if you're a woman, or you're not somebody who was assigned male at birth, and a guy is behaving in such a way which makes you feel unsafe, then you don't owe somebody politeness in that situation, because they are already compromising your needs. And even if it's somebody that you know in that situation, you've agreed to be in that circumstance and that situation with them, the second they cross certain boundaries, at that point, you no longer owe them anything in terms of politeness, respect, decency. The thing that popped into my head was that there's a video that does the rounds every now and then. I've seen multiple versions of it, where the one I saw, it was like when you're the single auntie, I think it was, and it was an older woman and a young girl, and there's this kind of song / nursery rhyme that they've created to the tune of "If You're Happy and You Know It." It's like don't be polite to men who creep you out. Don't be polite to men who creep you out. And I can't remember the rest of it. I'll see if I can find it and put it in the link to it in the show notes. But there's more to it. And it's like, it's that whole thing of like, yeah, this is a message. It's like, if somebody is behaving in a way where you don't feel safe, or you feel uncomfortable because of how they are behaving towards you, then you definitely don't owe politeness. But generally speaking, like if you're dealing with people who you are not choosing to be in a social situation with, you just happen to be existing out in the world, you don't owe social politeness to somebody in that situation, and expecting it or feeling entitled to a certain response from somebody because you have behaved in a certain way to them, is expecting them to meet your needs for you, and you have no reasonable entitlement to that or reasonable expectation of that. And if you have an issue with them not responding, that's a you problem. That's you not knowing how to meet your own needs and expecting other people to do it for you, and having a bad reaction when somebody else doesn't. So those are things that, if you need help working through something like that, come and see somebody like me and I will help you figure it out. It's no issue, because there are a lot of us that we've grown up being indoctrinated into these social norms, so we don't realize that actually we're feeling entitled to something that we're not actually entitled to, or that we don't have to respond there's no actually obligation to respond in a certain way, that is an entitlement to us from somebody else, that we should meet their needs for them. So this is like this is something that we want to start to break down these ideas and actually start to realize what is going on here from a needs-based perspective. So the second example was it was on Valentine's Day. I had a really lovely, again, I had quite a woo morning. I was in a lovely energetic space. I'd just gone and had a really yummy lunch, and I bought myself a hot drink, and I was just slowly wandering down the road to the location I was going in the afternoon. And I was walking at a very, very leisurely pace. Now, if anybody knows me well, you know that leisurely and walking are not two words that normally apply to me. Normally, if I'm walking, I mean, as somebody who is very tall and has long legs, who has a best friend who is not so tall and has shorter legs, she will confirm walking slow is not generally something I do. Normally, I'm on a mission to get somewhere and I'm cracking on at top speed, right?
And I'm jogging.
Yes. And then sometimes I have to remember, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, not everybody walks not everyone walks my pace, and two, not everybody is the length of leg that I have that makes it easier to walk at my pace. So I'm walking down and I'm sauntering, I'm meandering, I'm taking my time. Part of the reason I'm taking my time is it's not that far to where I'm going, and I want time to be able to drink my drink before I get there, because I've got to dispose of the cup before I go in. And as I'm walking down the street, this guy comes up behind me, goes, "Come on, love," and walks around me and looks at me as if to say, "How dare you walk at your own pace down the sidewalk?" And I looked at him as if he had 26 heads, because there was room for him to move around me, obviously, because he had done so. And the fact that he expected me to move out of his way, or he expected me to be walking at a pace that he was comfortable with, irrespective of what was going on with me, irrespective of what worked for me, I could have had a physical disability, which would have prevented me from walking quicker. And I don't want to use, like, I've used sometimes in this example, like disabilities as like as quote unquote valid reasons for somebody to be doing what they're doing. The truth of the matter is, as long as you're not negatively impacting somebody else, meeting your needs is a valid reason. You don't need any more of a valid reason other than I'm not negatively impacting anybody else right now. He believed I was negatively impacting him because he believed that he had the right to walk in that space in the way he wanted, at the pace he wanted, with nobody else doing anything that would prevent him or require him to take 4 steps around them to be able to maneuver around them rather than just barreling straight through them.
I mean, were you walking on his red carpet? Because it sounds like he felt like it was rolled out for him.
If I had, I probably would have jerked it from underneath him and enjoyed watching him tumble. Cancel, clear, delete that. Not really true. But I was just, the audacity of this person, the audacity of this man to expect somebody, anybody, to cater to his needs when they were doing nothing to negative. Like, he expected me to move out of the way or walk at a pace that he wanted to walk at. And he believed it was entirely unreasonable for me to be walking at a slower pace than that down the sidewalk. And as I said, I didn't say anything, but I have to say, I think the look I gave him was something like this. Like, and I'm not going to describe that. You want to see it, watch the video. It's not my best look, I have to say, but it really did convey, who the hell do you think you are? And what on earth makes you think you have the right to speak to me like that? And the truth of the matter is, I was in a lovely bubble and I was not going to pop my bubble by saying that to him. Mm-hmm. I would have been perfectly within my rights to have said that to him because his behavior was entirely unacceptable. And the interesting thing is that both times that we're talking about so far, I didn't negatively impact them with the choices that I was making. Both of them negatively compromised their needs with how they interacted with me, because the communication and the way they were communicating indicated that my needs were less important than theirs and that I had an obligation to meet their needs in the way they wanted to, even though both of these were complete strangers I had never met before and probably would never meet again. And hashtag patriarchy. It's not unexpected. Like, if you know, you know, and if you don't know, go do some research on the patriarchy and how it negatively impacts those who aren't men.
Yeah, that guy wasn't going to move along, love a 6'2" guy. Absolutely. And if you really want to understand more about this, I suggest looking up the term manslamming and manspreading. These are 2 examples of how this shows up in subtle and not so subtle ways, in the ways that men feel entitled to take up space and to have women adjust to accommodate them, and that they are the center, everyone else has to maneuver around them in order to support them getting their needs met, even if it's compromising the other person's. From a needs point of view, you can imagine not something we subscribe to. In fact, something we take great pleasure in dismantling piece by piece. Now, the interesting thing is that the final example was it wasn't a man that did it, but I was in a shop where I was looking for something that would be helpful for ADHD, somebody who has ADHD. I was talking to a couple of other people in there, one who also had ADHD, another who had an ADHD daughter. And this other person decided to insert themselves into the conversation and tell me / us that they didn't think that these labels were helpful and that they thought that they limited people. And again, I think I gave the same kind of who the hell asked you facial expression. And every single time I made very clear my position on it, which is that without the label of ADHD, it's very difficult for you to understand that's what's happening and the reasons that you operate different to other people, the reasons you have different needs, the reason or different things can affect your needs positively and negatively. And the actually, it's not that there's something wrong with you. Your brain just works differently to people who are neurotypical.
But also, would be really difficult to find the things that are helpful and supportive, which was exactly why I was there in the first place. And at one point, she said, "Oh, you don't think you would have been able to find that help without the label ADHD?" No, I don't, because you wouldn't understand what I mean. I didn't say this in quite this way. I just said, no, I don't. But I'm like, you wouldn't be able to understand how to give me what I'm looking for in this very moment if you didn't understand what ADHD was, i.e., the label and the associated attributes that went with it.
Well, and it's a diagnosis. It's not like it's ugh.
Mm-hmm.
That story frustrated me the first time you said it. It frustrates me now, like for so many reasons.
And so here's the interesting thing. In terms of the entitlement in this situation, one, this person felt entitled to uninvited insert themselves into this conversation and offer an opinion without consent, without request, without anyone showing any interest. And as somebody who was so clearly ignorant on the subject and she obviously had no experience with it herself based on what she was saying. You have 3 people standing in front of you who have lived experience of this, either firsthand or secondhand experience. And she thought her opinion was more important than all of the people, even everyone there was saying, no, hold on a second, this is actually really important. So first thing. And the second thing is, as I walked out, I obviously did not want to interact with this person any more than I absolutely have to. So I don't think everybody else in the store was as willing to be as direct as I was in terms of actually calling her opinions out. I didn't say, I mean, I could have, other circumstances I would have quite happily said, actually, I'm not sure why you think your opinion is relevant in this situation or who invited you to be a part of the conversation. And again, a lot of people would view that as rude. That's actually just a direct question going, that is a response to what she did, which might be considered rude by some. But it's not about it's the impact to everybody else's needs, because what she is saying is going to directly impact the needs of people here, which is when somebody says, I need this is important to me, this validates me, this helps, it meets my acknowledgement need. Oh no, you don't need this because that's not a good thing. No. Nope. So I didn't really want to deal with her any longer than I had to, so I actually ended up dealing with the other person who was working in the store. And as I walked out of the store, I was like straight line to the door. I wasn't like meandering around things to get out. She was on the other side of the store and she said, have a lovely day, as I walked out. And I just kept walking. And again, I know that she probably, and possibly other people in there, saw me as being rude in that moment because I wasn't responding. But if they did, it's because they felt entitled to me responding to that situation, even though this person had come in and acted in a way which is compromising to my needs and other people's needs in the place earlier. And this is where these kind of social norms are so toxic, or can be so toxic, because they can get us to invalidate and compromise our own needs when they've already been compromised by somebody else, just to subscribe to the social status, like the social norms, which is like, okay, I don't want to interact with this person because how they've behaved towards me has actually been compromised my needs. But because this person has said something to me now, I now feel socially obligated to say something back. But I don't want to say something back because engaging with this person is compromising me. So I'm actually going to compromise my needs again by adhering to this social norm, even though and this is where we need to start looking at things from a needs point of view. We need to put these needs lenses on things. And this is why in these situations, in none of those situations did I negatively impact their needs. The only thing that would have negatively impacted their needs was the expectation they had to me behaving in a certain way. And that is their issue, because they have an expectation for me to meet their needs, which is unreasonable, especially because, as I said, none of these people I know, none of these people I will probably ever see again. And it's not okay to expect people you know to meet your needs, let alone people who don't know. Like that's another level of audacity on the situation. And this is why I think that we need to be clear. It's not true that we don't owe people anything. In order to be operating in a self-first way, we need to owe them not negatively, not compromising their needs. It's not true that we do owe them anything. It's contextual to our needs. Now, it is important to say that if you decide that you don't want to meet anybody's needs or operate in a way which is mindful of needs for the rest of your life, you're welcome to do that. It could be a potentially very lonely experience. Now, you can choose to support other people's needs. You can choose to meet their needs. You can choose to engage their needs. And a lot of the time, that's what we do as we're building relationship with people. So yes, you don't have to do this. And if you want to get into a relationship with somebody else, whether that is a working relationship, whether it's an intimate relationship, whether it's a family relationship you normally are already in, or an intimate relationship or a friendship relationship, yes, it's important to recognize that in those situations, what we owe to each other is different, because what we actually owe is we owe meeting the needs of the relationship. And a lot of the time, the needs of the relationship are connected to or adjacent to the needs of the other person. So yeah, we're not responsible in those situations. Like Serena and I are two of the best friends that I think I've ever known anywhere on the planet. Is my job to meet Serena's needs? No, it is absolutely not my job to meet her needs. Can I support her needs? Yes, absolutely, I can do that. And in order for us to have the level of relationship that we do, we have to support the needs of the relationship between us. And by doing that, we often inadvertently end up positively impacting the other person's needs. So we do owe it to the relationship. And in doing so, often there's a trickle effect to the other person as well. And
Daz is being
Daz is doing his thing and being like, "Hi, I'm here. Could you meet my needs, please?"
And as a dependent, I need to make sure he gets fed. So
yes,
there you go.
Which is fair. So yes, this is just like, these are just some examples of this. And I think that it's so important that we don't have this black or white view on it, where it's either we don't owe anyone anything or we do owe everything according to these social norms. And we also need to revisit these social norms and go, who were these created by? Who do they benefit? And are they still relevant? And are they relevant to me? Because yeah, okay, if I go and walk about in an area and I don't engage with any social norms, chances are I'm probably going to meet less people than I would do if I was going to engage with those social norms. But I might be okay with that. And last week I was more than okay with that. Did I still meet people? Yes, I did. But did I meet everybody who expected something from me? No, I didn't. And actually, did I want to? No, I didn't. So was I okay with it? Absolutely. Yes, I was. So this is just like some examples of this. And I know that we've had this conversation so many times. I know that this is not new to you either.
No, not at all. I did have something. I want to specifically say, we're not saying go around being standoffish and rude to people and just like walking through life never interacting with others. Like, I realize some people could be listening being like, well, like, it's nice to be nice to the people that you're interacting with, on like your server, the person that
choose to be pleasant.
Yeah. And you don't owe it to them. No. Like, I'm getting my coffee in the morning, sometimes you'll get a, hey, how are you? Like, I'm ready to take on my day. Sometimes it's like, this is what I'd like.
Yeah. And again, go back to what we were talking about. Like, if you're dealing with a server, you are putting yourself in a situation to interact with somebody else. Like, you're choosing to interact with that person. Now, you can be direct, you can put in extra effort if you want to. The minimum is that you act respectfully in that dialogue because you've chosen to be there. If you're talking about a situation where you're not chosen to interact with somebody else and they are forcing you to interact with them, that is a very different situation. And so yes, there's a difference between we're not saying go through life intending to snub people, as in going out of your way to try to do that, because if you're doing that, you're trying to negatively impact other people's needs, and in doing so you're disconnecting from their humanity, therefore you're disconnecting from your own, so you're actually going to compromise your own value by doing it. And actually, I don't know whether we've done an episode just on that piece, the whole value, need, humanity, disconnection. I think we've talked about it a lot in other episodes. I don't know. If not, if we have, we're going to put it in the show notes. If not, we're going to add it to the list of things to do, because I think that is an episode that is stands on its own right and could actually do with a specific episode on that. So we're not saying try to do that. What we're saying is it's okay to choose not to engage if you are not choosing to interact with these people. Like if you walk into a store and you are belligerent to the person who is serving you, that is you're choosing to interact with them, and you are choosing and deliberately negatively impacting their needs in how you are doing that. That is not the same thing as simply choosing not to go above and beyond the bare minimum in those situations, which is to be respectful if you are choosing to be a part of that that interaction. Does that make sense?
Yes, that's what I was
Yeah.
trying to get.
Yeah, but so much of that, and I think especially as women, there are so many instances where there is this expectation of response, of politeness.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like I've been in situations where somebody has massively crossed boundaries of mine, so they've compromised my needs, and then they're shocked when I'm not polite to them. Now sometimes I choose to be for a safety's reason. So sometimes for my safety, I'm not as blunt or as direct as I could be. But sometimes I will be. And in that situation, no, I don't owe you kindness, or I don't owe you quote unquote politeness. I don't owe you anything other than not compromising your needs in the process. So let me look at say this example. Trigger warning, I'm going to talk about if a guy is seriously compromising a woman's needs. If, for example, a guy was compromising my boundaries in the sense that he's speaking to me in a way that I find uncomfortable, I find offensive, I'm not okay with, me compromising his needs in that moment could be me punching him in the face. Now, that is me responding in a way which is compromising his needs. Now, if I'm put in a position where I have to do that to keep safe because his behavior is such that the only way I can get out of that situation to support my needs, he's compromising my needs so much that I have to punch somebody in the face to be able to walk, to get away from the situation. This is why I'm saying there's always nuance in these things. So like, I want to be able to, I always want to be able to give you here's how this works and here's how you do in this situation. There isn't such a rule of thumb. It is all situation specific, which is the reason that when people they try and work with us one-on-one, because we can look at the specifics of their situation, put a needs lens on it and go, in this specific situation with these specific people in this specific circumstance, this is what's really going in at this point and this is how you deal with it. Trying to do it at a general level, a little bit harder.
One thing about meeting your needs consistently is this stuff becomes a lot easier. Like for me, there was a point where I felt like I had to be liked. I didn't want people to think I was a bitch. I wanted, like, you are the most upstanding of all the societal norms ever. Like, obviously that was never a reality. And like there was a point where I really felt like I had to do this, because if not, people were going to think that I was less than or whatever it was. But now that my needs are like, I meet them consistently, and there's no wavering on my value, on my worth, any of that. If I am being direct because something deserves directness, if I am being silent because something I believe deserves my silence, which, like, Claire, just keep on walking. Like, I used to look at myself and be like, oh, well, you know, I should have done this. And, you know, like now I'm like, think what you want. Like, I know I operate in a way that I am proud of. You are not deserving of my time and not deserving. Sorry. Cancel, clear, delete that. You are not, you
entitled.
Cannot. Thank you. You are not entitled. I'm like obligated, entitled to that. And that's the thing. And now it's like, if I have a moment where I'm being direct, I'm like, yeah, like I'm being direct because this is what I need to do right now. And I'm not going to go off and then feel bad for myself because I was direct about something, because somebody else had their feelings about it. Like,
Right. So let's put a needs lens on what Serena's just said and explain from a needs point of view what's happening. So when Serena felt, when Serena's needs were not well met by herself, and I know Serena, so I know this is true, but if I didn't know Serena, I would phrase this as a question. I will still phrase it as a question just out of courtesy. I'm guessing that part of the reason for that is part of your value need was you were trying to get your value need met by how you were perceived by other people. So if other people saw you as polite, if other people saw you as in good social standing in terms of your behavior, that was one of the reasons that you felt good about yourself, because you didn't actually feel good about yourself in other ways. So you were dependent on other people seeing you a certain way to get your value need met. Or, I mean, in some respect, it's not really compromised. It's not really very well met in this situation, but it's a red spectrum way of meeting your value need. Is that true?
mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And along with an acknowledgement, like,
Yeah.
because usually if you're
Mm-hmm.
polite, you get a thank you back, and it's like,
Yes, exactly. And the other thing is that, and this is in the context of strangers, and in the context of people that Serena knows, that became even more apparent, because a lot of the time this is true for me previously, I'm guessing Serena was dependent on the people around her to get her needs met. And so therefore her value need being met by them seeing her as being a good person, a respectful person, a kind person, a polite person, all of those things were ways of getting a value need met without knowing how to meet it for herself. True?
mm-hmm. True.
Yeah.
I was a people pleaser. So that meant I had to follow all those social norms. And I never knew that until I got into a point where I'm like, wait a minute.
This whole need stuff kind of pulls some of those threads apart. So the reason it becomes easier to do this when your needs are met is because you are no longer dependent on what other people think of you to feel good about yourself. Either people who are strangers or people that you know, which means that if your needs are well met, not only do you need them to see you a certain way, do you not need them to see you a certain way for you to feel good about yourself? If they see you in another way because of their expectations and their entitlement, that does nothing to impact your self-image and your sense of value. And that's the reason that if your needs are already well met, it doesn't matter if some person I've never met before and will never meet again thinks I'm rude, because I'm not doing the thing that this person believes they are entitled to. And it doesn't change my self-value at all. My knowing of my value doesn't get compromised by somebody perceiving ill of me because they've got a skewed idea about what I should be doing for them. Likewise, I don't need you to see me as a good person to feel my value need being met. So it's kind of twofold. So once we do this for ourselves, and that's the reason, like if my needs are well met, the social norms fall away and I operate in a way that feels in alignment with who I am and where I'm at. So generally speaking, if I'm in a good place and I want to engage with other people, I mean, Serena will tell you, I'm one of the friendliest people around. I will chat to people, like we both are. We'll chat to people. We'll make friends. We make friends everywhere we go because that's how we tend to operate. And because that's who I am as a person. I like to be friendly. I like to meet people. I like to connect with people. So that's who I am. Where I'm at is as equally important. Where I'm at, well, firstly, also who I am is somebody who will not be pulled into something that doesn't feel in alignment for me. So if somebody's trying to force me to interact with them when I don't really feel like I want to interact with them, or they don't feel like someone I want to interact with, I'm probably not going to do it. Not because I'm not friendly, because I don't want to interact with that particular person because of either how they're behaving, how they're talking to me, whatever it is. There's something about it that doesn't feel in alignment, and I'm going to do what feels in alignment for me. Likewise, where I'm at is equally important. If I've got low energy, if I've got low capacity, I'm not going to engage with as many people because I've got to keep all that energy for the things I've got to get done. And actually interacting with other people is going to drain my energy in some way, shape or form. If I'm in a place where, I mean, there have been times where if what had happened last week or week before last happened to me, I don't know, 6 months ago, I probably would have burst into tears on the spot because of where I was at and the other things that were going on in my life. if I'm in that place where I feel grumpy and I don't feel like if I interact with somebody, it's going to be a pleasant experience for either of us, I'm probably not going to do it. If I'm in a place where I feel like I am high energy and really have a desire to connect, I'm probably going to do it more. I would probably be the person saying good morning to people. And if they, and this the interesting thing is that through doing this, if I say good morning to somebody and they don't say it back, it makes no difference to me. Yeah. If they say it back, that's great. But I'm offering something. It's not an obligation. It doesn't come with an expectation. And that's the difference, is that once your needs are well met, you get to make decisions and operate in alignment with who you are and in alignment with where you're at. And that is a absolutely life-changing experience when you can do that and you can walk down the street in a way that feels like, this feels good to me, this feels like who I am, this feels like where I'm at. The second you start to compromise your needs to try to adhere to social norms, the things unravel really quickly, because the chances are, go
on. Sometimes they can spot, like, there have been multiple times where I have been in a certain mood,
Space.
zone, whatever it is, and somebody says something as simple as like good morning, like, just a social nicety, and I reply back with whatever the standard social response
nicety is.
And then all of a sudden they're telling me their life story. Like, this happened recently and I'm like, I wish I had just been, I had honored where I was at. And, like, I don't remember whether or not I was like, I really don't even want to respond to this person, but I do, like, I do remember feeling, oh, I should respond.
Yeah.
And then like 20 minutes later, I'm like, and it was one of those places I could have set boundaries in there and I chose to be part of the conversation for other reasons. But I'm like, like, and it was I stayed in it because there was a meeting of my needs in it, but there was also a compromising of my needs in it too. So it's just something I wanted to bring up, because it's like, there have been times where I'm like, I knew I should have just kept walking. I knew it. Like, you gotta kind of, you gotta trust you gotta honor where you're at and trust what you're feeling. Because sometimes your being knows, like, there have been times where it's like, like a little kid being pulled along. It's like, but I think I want to talk to them. And it's like, my being's like, you do not.
No.
Like, let's focus.
And you're literally inside my brain, because that was like the next thing I was going to say. We're on the same page as far as this is concerned. And the other thing I'll add to that is that, yeah, sometimes if you don't honor where you're at, it can compromise your needs further. But the interesting thing is, if you don't honor where you're at, sometimes it can compromise. It can not have the desired effect. So for example, if you're in a crappy space and somebody says morning to you and you go, oh, morning, like, technically you've upheld the social contract. But actually, is it going to feel good to them? Probably not. Again, because they've got a level of expectation. But again, if you're not in a good space yourself, even when doing the social niceties, it can still backfire. You can still be considered rude, because this person took you through that. Like, and this is the thing, people are looking at these situations through their own lenses. It's their perspective of the situation. They're going to determine whether you've responded in the correct social manner. They're going to determine whether you've been polite or whether you've been rude. So it's interesting. So, like, just because, like, you can fulfill the social contract from a technically you can have fulfilled it, but in actual terms of, is anyone benefiting from that situation? Probably not, because they're probably not going to be happy about it. You're probably not going to be happy about it. Nobody's needs are being met. Everyone's needs are compromised because they have a sense of entitlement to you responding in a certain way and you haven't done it. That's their problem, not yours. And you've compromised yourself to fulfill the social contract that hasn't benefited your needs in any way, shape, or form, and has actually compromised them in the process.
Well, that seems
so. This, right. And that's the point, which is that, this is the reason that it's really important for you to take care of your needs and support your needs, because when you do this, you can act in a way which means that, like, I know that this is a slightly odd example, But like Serena and I, if you text somebody, the social contract is that they text back and that they respond to whatever it is that you've said. If Serena is not in the space, that my point exactly. Now, there is an element of acknowledging that the communication has been received, because that's part of it, is like, especially again, if it's somebody who you have no how many emails do you get that are spam emails, or there are people trying to sell you something? There's no sense of social obligation to respond to those. Like, yes, I accepted your email. Bugger off, I'm not interested. Like, that's not part of the social contract. When it comes to relationship, again, remember, we have to meet the needs of the relationship. And one of the needs of the relationship is communication. And one of the things in terms of communication is making sure that there is an acknowledgement for the communication being received. But the interesting thing is Serena and I have found our own way of doing this, which means that if either one of us is not in the space, we can just send an emoji. It doesn't take any energy, really. It's like, I want to support the needs of the we both always want to support the needs of the relationship, because this relationship is so important to both of us. So, but we're not going to compromise ourselves in order to do that. And there have been times, I know in the past, right, probably when we first met, where Serena and I will have messaged the other because we're like, oh, but we want to be like, we want the other person to know we care and that we're not ignoring them, and we want this relation, we want this friendship to be a thing, so we're not going to just ignore the message that's been sent, and we're not just going to send an emoji, because like, what the fuck does that mean? I mean, sometimes it's hard enough to figure out what someone means from a text message with the text,
Right.
but now we've got a shorthand. If either one of us doesn't have the capacity, normally Serena will drop a green heart, I will drop a purple heart. That's how we that's how we communicate. Yeah, I've got your message, I don't have the capacity to respond right now. So there
Sometimes
are ways
it's
of
saying that. Like,
yes,
sometimes it's like, I just don't, I've
I
received
don't, I
this, I do
can't, I
not,
won't.
yep, not right now, I'll get back to you on this. And like, that's taking it into a different like level of like, Claire was saying, relationship and meeting the needs of the actual relationship. But it's, yeah, I can imagine, like, I warn people now, if I think we're gonna be friends, like, I give like the Serena 101 on communication. I'm like, this has nothing to do with you, this has to do with me, and this is what works for me, and I do this for myself. Like,
And like, people will know that Serena isn't a phone call person, she's a text person, and sometimes she's not a text person because she doesn't have the capacity to even do that. And I remember there was a time where a mutual friend and I were hanging out, and they accidentally called Serena by mistake, or no, I think Serena you actually accidentally called them by mistake,
yes.
and they were
Oh my God, she's
Serena's calling.
calling.
He didn't even get to the point of answering the call before she'd already hung up and sent a message going, sorry, that was about to, I didn't mean to do that. Like it was like, because we've taken care, like, one of the needs of the relationship is learning about the other person and figuring out the ways of doing relationship that work for the other party. And so that's one of the things we know, is that Serena's not a phone person. She will be a phone person. Like, if I'm like, can you talk? I need something right now. Or there's a time sensitive thing, like, can we just do and I will caveat it with like, can you just do a brief call, because there's something quick that it's not going to work well. It's going to take so much longer over text than it would if we just had a 2-minute call. At which point she's like, yeah, fine, okay, I'll do a 2-minute call.
Fine.
And it's not that she's averse to communicating, because we speak on the regular on video call. It's that a lot of the time it's like, when that is unplanned, and if it's unnecessary, it's easier for her to manage in terms of just there being a text communication. And in terms of honoring the communication and the acknowledgement, it's different for different relationships.
It's
and so
interesting.
go on.
You're talking about the phone thing. My aunt always wants to talk on the phone, and I'm like, it's just like, I am not a phone talker. Like, we can try to plan something, but I'm not gonna pretend like this is gonna happen anytime soon. And I mean, I think it's probably going on years, like with text and stuff, like we're not out of communication. But I know what she wants from that phone call, she's probably not gonna get from me, because like, there's very few times and I'm like, yeah, I want to be talking on the phone. There's always a little bit of like, I'm doing this for you, not for me. Like,
yeah.
And that comes through, and I wouldn't want that there. So I'm like, it's just not, I'm not in a good place for this right now. So here's what I can offer in forms of communication.
Well, and it's that combination of this is not who I am. I'm not really a phone person, and I definitely don't have the capacity for it right now. That is not going to end well for anybody.
Right.
And there are times when, okay, I will make the effort to do this, even though it's not who I am. In this moment, it's not going to compromise my needs to do it, so I'm okay to do it in this point in time.
Right. It doesn't feel out of alignment. It's
Yeah.
like, but there are times where I'm like, I can't even bring myself to it. So I
There
need
are
to honor
times
that.
when Serena and I are messaging and she doesn't have the capacity to even respond to a text message. Like a phone call, definitely not happening. Like that's just the reality. And
And
so
there would have been a time that I would have just pushed through all of that. And there was time, I mean, I
yeah.
did do that. I would have the calls. I didn't really want to call. I feel I had to respond to things like beyond the acknowledgement, and like that didn't do anything good for me.
And the interesting thing is because we know this about each other, one of the things that we've now taken to doing is that we will check in with the other as to whether we are compromising our needs. Is it really in alignment for where we are? So like when we messaged earlier today, Serena messaged me going, no, I'm not in the best space today, but I'm okay to record. And I checked in. Are you sure you're okay to record? Not because I don't trust her to be like honest with me, but just because I want to make sure that she knows it's okay for her to honor where she's at in any one particular time. And like vice versa, like Serena's done the same thing for me. It's like, are you really in a space to do this right now? Probably not. Okay, good shout. Let's skip it. We'll do it another time. And so this is where the interesting thing is that something that can seem on the surface like it is going to keep people at a distance, i.e. operating in a way which is only in alignment with who you are and where you're at. It could seem like people would be like, oh, okay, that's going to make for a very lonely life. Well, actually, no, because if you are operating from who you are and where you're at, and you are in relationship with somebody else who is operating from who they are and where they're at, and you're wanting to find ways of communicating and relating and being with each other that work for both parties, it makes you so much closer because you no longer have to compromise your needs to meet the social norms. Instead, you get to be among the people who want you to be as supported by the situation as them. So you find ways of doing it that work for both parties, and that stay in alignment with who we are and where we're at. And so things like, there's not like a one size fits all for the way Serena and I communicate. How we communicate, when we communicate, it varies according, because like who we are never changes. Who we are changes slower over time, maybe, because we have both changed in the time we've known each other. But where we're at fluctuates on a daily basis. So we check in to make sure that how we're operating works. And I cannot tell you how supported you feel when you are in relationships with people who operate this way, who don't expect you to just do what you're going to do because it's polite or because it's the socially acceptable thing or because you're not being rude, but because it's in alignment with who you are and how you currently are. For somebody to want that for you and for you to want that for somebody else, it creates this nurturing space in relationship that actually can heal a lot of the traumas, slight traumas, sometimes significant and sometimes sustained. Like if you don't know what we're talking about, we'll put the link to the trauma episode in the show notes, that we've sustained in ourselves by compromising our needs over the years to fit in with the societal norms. And that's one of the reasons that relationships like this can be so important, because they can actually provide healing for the way our needs have been compromised and the way we have compromised our own needs through trying to do things the quote unquote right way, and instead find ways of doing things that are actually supportive of everybody's needs. Anything you want to add? I know we're a little over time, but just checking.
I'm good.
Okie dokie. Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode. But in the meantime, remember to stay safe, take care of yourself, and continue to meet your own needs. Lots of love. Bye.
Bye, friends.
That's it for today.
If you like what you heard
and would like to see some of Serena's awesome facial expressions,
check out the video podcast on YouTube.
And remember, the only thing you owe other people is not to compromise their needs.
Well, shit. It really is that simple.